All right, so this is going to be the High Coast tasting we're doing. So just some kind of different interesting drams from the Swedish distillery. So the distillery bottling where High Coast have an independent bottling through Cane Heads, and then an interesting world blended malt from from Adelphi, which is a sandy mood. It's a blend of Ardnamurchan and High Coast. So first, we're going to try some of the High Coast have. I'll just pull up my screen for this part. I'd pull together just a quick presentation for some stuff, just to know too much, just a little bit of information about it. So first thing is just the lineup. So High Coast have, second is your Cane Heads High Coast, and third is your Adelphi. And just a little bit on the distillery. There's an image of it. It's quite a nice kind of looking area. I didn't see too much more about it, just got a nice full image, and then just a little bit about what they're putting together in the whiskey. So 2.5 hour fermentation, not the longest, but still quite a long fermentation, getting that kind of fruitier style spirit. And I think you do find that on most of the bottlings, and I think the High Coast have demonstrates that quite a bit. And using a lot of different types of casks, including different styles of oaks, so Swedish Hungarian oaks. Usually smaller sizes of casks for those Swedish and Hungarian oaks from the looks of it. And then kind of your more standard ex-bourbon sherry casks and stuff like that. What are folks thinking of it just off the nose so far?
It's quite muted, but like got a hint of spice on the nose for me.
I can see that. I think it's definitely a lighter nose anyway.
I've been mixing up mortar all day, so it's probably like brick dust up my nose, shielding me a little bit.
No, it's definitely quite light. I'd say like the thing I normally found on it was like that little bit kind of tropical fruit kind of setting to it.
What's the ABV on this?
48%.
48?
Yeah.
Oh. Ooh.
So yeah, decent bit of strength to it as well. So
it's citrusy for me.
I don't know whether I fried my nostrils earlier. I was doing some tasting notes.
It is very light, to be fair. Like even the nose, it's not got a massive amount on the nose. I think you get that little bit of tropical fruit, but not much more than that. But it is quite a young malt, inevitably. So have is 75% unpeated whiskey, 25% peated. And they give you quite a lot of information online about what they put into it. So unpeated is all from some Pilsner malt. Peated Pilsner malt, peated to 71 ppm, and then some sour Scottish malt at 46 ppm. Not specifically stating what Scottish maltings have got it from. They do state for the Pilsner malt, I think it's Viking malt, and there's another one they source from. It's all on their website, but just sort of give a little bit more information there. And then mostly ex-bourbon, but with some in Swedish oak and Hungarian oak for 5 months before going into ex-bourbon, and some just being fully matured in ex-bourbon. And available around that kind of 40 to 50 pound mark.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So definitely get the vanilla at the front end from the bourbon, but then you get that sort of spiciness, which I know Swedish oak, certainly I don't know about Hungarian oak, but you can't keep it in there for too long because it's quite active and makes it quite spicy. And then yeah, I just get loads and loads of mint on the finish for me. It sort of goes quite minty after the vanilla, and after the spiciness it just goes into mint. But I was at Amazon, I think, for 30 quid at one point, both that and the peated version. Oh, the full peated one.
Yeah, they've done some really good deals on it in the past on Amazon. Currently, I took a look beforehand, it was about 40 to 50 pounds. You're seeing it at £40 around on Amazon, but everywhere it's kind of 40 to 50. You're expecting it to be. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Washhouse has given us some awesome notes.
No, it was a question, just kind of off topic, but do you know if these do a Hungarian oak specific sort of brand, or any other place that does?
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I know of there's a distillery over in Ireland does a Hungarian oak finish. It comes out of Middleton,
All right.
but branded as Method and Madness.
Oh, is that Hungarian? Is it?
They do lots of different bottlings, but one of them is definitely a Hungarian oak. Do you know what? I'll see if I can find the link to it here, and I'll pop it in the chat.
Be interesting to try it. That's all. I don't think I mean, I potentially have at some point, but I don't off the top of my head know that I have.
They would do a lot of different finishes. Hungarian oak was definitely one of them. They do some interesting things, actually.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's realistically like solely like a kind of more funky experiment branch of Middleton. You know, like let it keep Middleton, because Middleton's too large a brand to really do experimentation or in a way that people won't complain. Essentially, if you do that with Jameson, people are going to complain that it doesn't taste like what they expect. But having this offshoot that's clearly still Middleton, you know what it is, but you get to have that experience of something very different.
There's also there's a small distillery over here called Cologne that are very experimental. I've just popped that in the chat there, Dave.
Cheers.
I think it's still I think you can still buy it, by the way. But it's probably pricey enough. Yeah, Cologne, they do a lot of things, and they've done a bottling of Hungarian oak, but getting your hands on one of those would be nigh on impossible. They have like a cult following, like literally, because they do that many different, like they've done tequila cask whiskies, and you know, just as an example. But I could see if I can get you some samples somewhere. I'll ask a couple of people, sure, and I'll send you a message on Discord rather than you buying a bottle first.
Yeah, awesome.
So one of the things that I used to, especially like at the time I first tried this, it was around the time kind of Ardmarkin's kind of first earlier releases were about, that were very hard to get. This was a bottle I definitely have like recommended as a alternative to Ardmarkin, just because of like the style, especially like I have that kind of lightly peated and that kind of very tropical style as well. I did it a lot when I worked in Tyndrum. Didn't sell any of it because it's Swedish whiskey and it's just not what folk were interested in. They didn't want it, which is fair enough. But if you're trying, that was the point. I'm offering you it because it tastes like what you're looking for, not because it's Scottish whiskey. Yeah, it's a very like. I say it's quite an interesting one, and I don't know about like a £50 price mark. Maybe it's slightly much for it, but then again, it's a newer distillery. That's what everything's kind of like at that point. But when you're able to pick up on offer, which has went on offer quite a few times from different retailers, it's definitely, I think, worth that kind of easily worth the kind of price you can get it from when it's on offer.
I like it.
Yeah. More folks' overall opinion of it?
I like it.
Yeah. I've had a quick sniff of all three. They all seem pretty decent.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think you're right. I think probably 50 quid wouldn't see me buying a bottle, but I'd definitely be tempted at 35.
Yeah, definitely.
We're talking about the Harvey still, are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're ready to, we can always move on to the Cairn heads when folk are ready to.
Hmm.
So this one's a fair bit stronger. It's 60.2%.
The nose definitely changes on that first one when you've had a couple of sips. Almost grapey.
I'd pull up Blue slides for this one, but realistically, the Cane Heads bottle, there's not really that much information out there on it. It's new American oak matured. It's American oak matured is what it says. It doesn't specify new, but by the fact it's not saying ex bourbon, I'm assuming it's virgin oak. 60.2% peated, High Coast, single cask. So stumps a bit. I think of it quite similar to maybe like a Haven Timmer in terms of like the style. It's not a million miles away from. It's just a little bit more amplified.
Yeah.
She alright?
Yeah.
I
Oh, is that why she's come to hide? Dog's been in the bin and now she's under my feet, and I'm wondering why. It's not something she normally does. Sorry about that. Bit of an interruption. I think I'm getting like herbal notes off this, to be honest.
Yeah.
Herbal
Yeah.
and sort of like agricultural as well.
I wouldn't have put it down as peated from the nose, but I may be a bit tainted from the have. Or the alcohol is blinding me because it's got quite a bit of an alcohol hit on the nose, isn't it? 60%.
Yeah. It's 7 years old as well. It's still kind of relatively young, but I think as well, a lot of the similar to like Ardnamurchan, it doesn't come across always as peated as it can be. And I think it's for kind of similar reasons. It's quite a fruity spirit, and when you have that, the peat doesn't always showcase in the same way. And with this also being that if it is what I'm assuming it is, which is new American oak, sometimes that can kind of over dominate peat, or not necessarily, but can kind of fight with peat quite a lot if there's quite a heavy influence of it.
Do you know, and I know obviously not expecting you to know this, but do you know what type of peat they use?
So they have, I don't know about what specific peat they use. No, I know that they do source from Scotland for some of it. So that will just be some kind of standard maltings. So I don't know if it's like, so I imagine it's likely to be sourced Highland, but I couldn't say that for a fact. And for layers, I have less of an idea. I don't know if it's like a local peat or equivalent, or if they're sourcing peat from Scotland. There's no like clear information about that.
Yeah, no worries. I just wondered because obviously Mira Dooley, juniper branches, and then Scottish peat. But I know Sweden has got peat bogs, but I think they're a bit more environmentally friendly than us. So I just wondered whether they'd had that information. But
I also do, but it does clearly state that it is like it's an unpeated component and a peated component. So I don't think there's any like extra things like that juniper thing in it at all. There's no like that sort of thing that McMira does.
yeah,
This one packs a punch.
Yeah, well, it's quite a strong one.
Yeah, it's strange. It smelled really fruity to me. I would agree with what Tom said. Like, no, wouldn't have taken peat at all. And then tasted it. Now you can, once you taste it, there is a little kind of burnt undertone to the fruity. I don't know.
Yeah, quite like
It kind of berries.
it's quite a like a really sweet peated whiskey. Reminds me a little bit of the Sweet Smoke Isla Bay.
right.
That's good. This is good. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, that is really, really good.
That's an interesting one. I think, like, again, it's something that's quite interesting as well. A whiskey does that. It doesn't have like Because as well as kind of good example of whiskey, it doesn't have that same arrival like you expect in the nose. You don't get the same in the taste. It's very different. It gives that kind of fruitier, lighter style in the nose still, but it has that kind of earthy kind of heft underneath that from a peat. I wouldn't say it's like particularly smoky. It's just kind of earthy. I think what you were saying there earlier, David, about the kind of herby kind of thing to it as well comes there.
Yeah, that it's weird. That it's like that. I'm picking. I don't know whether that I'm picking up so much of that sort of earthiness to it because I drank that Kilkerran tasting room the other day, and that was just like being stood in a farmer's field in mucking season. And then I had the Glen Scotia after that. That was a little bit of it. So I don't know whether because I haven't really drank anything like that for a while, and then I've sort of had it put my brain back around that sort of thing, that I've sort of picked it out of here a little bit easier, maybe. But
I've put a few drops of water in it, and it's just turned it to liquid butter.
yeah,
The mouthfeel's gone incredible on it.
I'll do the same.
I was worried, about putting water in it because I don't really get on well with water and whiskey. But sometimes if I do put it in, I find I lose the flavour and it just becomes spicy. Whereas this totally hasn't done that.
I think it always depends on the whiskey, and especially like peated whiskey. I think sometimes has that little thing of it can get amplify some things in it, just bringing certain flavors more to the top. Especially with samples, I get that. Like when you've got a full bottle, it's like, have a dram. You just play about this water, see what works for you. But if you've only got one, I don't know how much you want to play with water with it, and then go, oh shit, I don't like it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water absolutely make that. There's a lot more going on with a bit of water.
Takes a bit of the sort of farminess away. What I was thinking of as well. It goes to, I don't know what the word would be, but it sort of goes back to a more unfilthy sort of, it kind of tones down the funk sort of thing. Is one way of some people might describe it.
Yeah, like Earth's cat doesn't die down. It's still there, but it's not as prevalent as when it was just neat.
Definitely a lot sweeter with a bit of water. It's almost.
Yeah, as Tom Scott just fired that in the chat, it's still available from Cane and Heads. Looked at that earlier on, so it's £67.
Still numbs the mouth though. That's strong. In a good way.
60.2 is
Yes.
not to be trifled with, is it? As a ABV.
No, definitely. I say it's interesting seeing that as well, because there have been some new independent bottlers of High Coast recently, and some have been quite, like the Adelphi did one recently, and Adelphi's always kind of hit or miss with their pricing, I think, or mostly miss, like in terms of being, they're not a comment on the quality of them, just pricey. And they've done like some High Coast recently that was probably closer to that £100 mark, even for just a single cask High Coast, and you're going, how much can you, like, if another brand can, they're not like for like, it's different casks, it's different whatever. But if Cane Heads can put that out at under 70, and this other one's doing it at closer to 100, what's the difference? All in just Adelphi can get away with it because Adelphi sells.
Yeah, they've got the reputation for quality, haven't they? So they can stick the premium on it, I suppose. Not saying Cadenheads don't have a reputation for quality, but like I used to be really like a big fan of Cadenheads, but recently, if I had the opportunity to buy a bottle of either, I would probably go for an Adelphi over a Cadenheads. So I did have that Adelphi that Alan sent us last night, the Ben Nevis 5-year-old Oloroso, and I didn't expect it from Adelphi. I thought they'd be putting better stuff out, to be honest. There was nothing wrong with it, but I just expected it to be better just because of the amount of money they charge you for a bottle. I mean, I don't know how much you paid for that, but I'm just going off the sort of topic that we're talking about.
Well, that one, I believe, retailed about 70 to 80.
Yeah, exactly. If I'd paid 80 quid for that, I'd be livid. Don't know if anybody else has a view.
The Lepeated Con Moore that I bought for 42 quid. No, 32 quid for a peated Ben Nevis. It was the best whiskey I've drunk.
Well, there you go. 32 quid, less than half the price of what that is.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it? It would be more today anyway, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I've done some like recent Carmore like peated sherry ones that are generally coming closer to that 50-55 mark now. Lord Captain out at which
it's kind of standard now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to get many bottles coming out at 30 quid or 40 quid, are you? I liked the Glen Scotia Festival bottling. I don't know if anyone's had their sample of that yet, but my bottle seems to be evaporating pretty fast in the shed.
That's why you filled in the garage. Somewhere
got a heat wave down there, have you?
I think so, Dave. Yeah.
But I like the fact that Glen Scotia's done that one. That it's like I was wondering what was going to be like pricing going forward, because our pricing seems to be a bit mostly good, but like the last one, the 12-year-old they did for a seasonal release, it was what, £75 for 12-year-old Glen Scotia. It seemed a bit, considering what they'd done beforehand, seemed a bit pricey for what it was. So seeing that like this one's came out a bit younger, but £55, which for a cash strength whiskey, you can't really complain at.
Jay, that's for nothing compared to prices that Irish whiskey costs.
No, but that's the one that's got a good price. I'm not saying
but that's what I mean. Like you're talking prices here, and I'm thinking when you see the bottlings that go out over here and like sell out in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Like places are releasing like single cask bottles, maybe 250 to 320 bottles, and genuinely they sell out in 90 seconds. Like the websites crash. There's that many people trying to get them, and they're cask strength, and it's like 125 quid plus a bottle.
What about just while you're talking about that, have you ever had anything made at the Great Northern Distillery in what's that place begins with a D, just near the border?
Is it Drogheda?
It's got a race course there. It's Dundalk, yeah. There's a Great Northern Distillery in Dundalk.
Yeah. So what's happening over here at the minute is a lot of places they're making their own liquid, but they're buying casks from places like Great Northern and then recasking them and working on them and selling them. There's a WD O'Connell buys some liquid from have bought cask from Great Northern in the past, and
that's the only person I could find online that actually sold it.
Honestly, if you get a chance for WD O'Connell, I would recommend taking it. They like the guy Daffy really knows what he's doing. They recast it and do a lot of really, really, really interesting things.
Well, there's a load of casks going for sale in 6 weeks' time, and I've kind of asked to be sort of put near the front of the queue for when they come out. Like what's the score with them basically?
We
I
bought,
have no idea. I asked because just out of interest, and then thinking I'd be able to find out about them, no bother, and try it. But as yet, I've only seen one bottle online. It's that one you're talking about by them.
what was it?
What is the cask? It's
No,
just
no, no,
new make.
what was the bottling?
Oh, I don't know. It was just one of those O'Connell bottles, bottlings. I didn't know whether it was a legit website, so I just
Yeah,
after that.
they bought a lot of Great Northern, and they are quite open about, you know, it was still the Great Northern, and then they recast it, but it's just good. It's good. I've tasted maybe 8 of their whiskies. You know, I bought some of the bottles, and then I've done tastings with them, and they've all been great. They actually reintroduced peated whiskey back in the Irish whiskey with one of their bottles. Bill Phil, it was called, and it was really good. But again, like, I can ask a couple of people if you're wanting to get more information.
Yeah, if you don't mind, anything would be, because they've got a good website, but as to what actually comes out of there is a different story.
Drop me a message on the Discord. My username's Lockie1979. Drop me a message, and I'll ask a couple of people. Not a problem at all.
Where are we with these now?
So that's been the not the issue, but with Irish whiskey, a lot of distillers, like, independent bottling's very big in Scotland. Independent, the same process is very big in Ireland. They just don't. It's just brands doing it as distilleries and not disclosing that it's sourced from somewhere else, not making that abundantly clear.
Some of them don't, Chay, and there's been a big kick up about it in the last 18 months to 2 years. You know, you have to be, like, transparent. There's actually been some changes to the regulations because of people putting out whiskey as if it had been distilled from start to finish.
It's a common thing. I mean, you see it somewhat in Scotland as well. I've seen some brands starting to do, like, not just starting, just in general do that, but there's a better avenue for it to be done better. You know, like, it's more commonly found to have those independent bottles that clearly state that it's not Lemlet's made it, they've just sourced this and want to put it out. Great. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, it's really good because you get to taste things in a different way than you'd normally try it from a distillery. You know, distilleries will generally put out larger, especially if it's like the big brands. It's going to be a large vatting of many, many casks. We'll try to sell casks for a smaller batch of them to a different brand's tasting profile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're blending it the way they want it to be, not necessarily to showcase what the distillery wants to show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there is interesting things like how casks come out of distilleries and stuff. They may do a specific run of this is something that I only found out the other day. I mean, it's quite obvious when you think about it, but they may do a specific run. Say that Victoriana by Glen Scotia or whatever is. I mean, I don't know if it is a specific, specifically made new make spirit, but whatever recipe that is, there could be a distillery that's got an idea for a specific new make that they want to have a go at making, and they've got the whole idea, they've got the name, they've got the bottle that they want to do, and then when it comes to actually bottling it, there's X amount of casks left over that they don't really want to do anything with them because they've got no intention of doing it ever again or whatever. Them casks will go out there, an independent bottler will get them, and it'll be something slightly different to what they're serving up normally, which is it's quite good. I thought we just they just sold all the crap, to be honest. But it's not always like that.
No, definitely. Like, Dumvilles over here are like, they're absolute magicians with the whiskey they put out. Like, they haven't put out any of their own liquid. But they like recask it, and honestly, like, everything they release is that's the place I'm talking about, like literally 90 seconds. Like
Yeah, no,
the
that
price
one
of the
is
bottles
very popular.
they just sell out.
So, how old's this High Coast? How long have they been kicking about? Did you say at the beginning? If you did, I missed this.
I did not.
I went back to the first one, by the way. After the first one was, I would buy a bottle of that at a, if it was on up, especially around 40 quid. Definitely buy a bottle of that. Let's see.
Let me just see. I don't know exactly when they established. I think it would be 2010. They're saying, yeah.
2010.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so they're not brand new then. They've got some good, good bit of age behind them.
Oh, it's just a question of, I guess, how much they've actually managed in the first place, because I don't see them doing that much using like older stock generally. Actually, they do have a 10-year-old they released, but I think a lot of it is solely kept in the. You don't really see it come over here. A lot of them, like you go into their website, it shows you like all these different releases they've done. And you're like, yeah, I've seen like 3 of those. You know, like you just don't see them here that much, which is fair enough. Like it's not, you know, if it's a smaller release, it's got to be same with here. You know, if it's a small release, it doesn't go to export markets commonly. Similar with them, if it's a really small release, it's not going to come elsewhere. It's going to stay there. If folk are ready, we can move on to the Delphi. Let me just pull that up. So
this one on the nose for me was like pure cloves when I first poured it. But
Yeah,
now it's something else. It's got some milk chocolate to it as well.
this is definitely like a very interesting one. I'll fire up the just get a couple of notes I took and all of it. So this one's a blend of 2 bourbon casks of peated High Coast and 2 sherry hogsheads of unpeated Ardnamurchan. I've put asterisks there because this is solely based off my own memory from a tasting. I'm pretty confident that's the case, but I want to just make that clear that this is what I'm pretty sure this is the case, but I don't remember. I couldn't find any like reference to it elsewhere, just from the tasting with a brand rep stating that.
Just checking. Am I the only one who doesn't see anything?
Yeah, no, I was going to say I can't see your slide either.
No, me neither.
I don't know why it's not doing that. Let me try that again, see if it works this time.
Sometimes you have to do it twice.
Is it came up this
slip
time?
out and get a drink of water.
Right, if it's not came up this time, it's not coming up.
It hasn't come up, I'm afraid.
That's fine. It's not like it's that much information about it anyway. It's a couple of like just points. So 2 ex-bourbon casks of peated High Coast, 2 sherry hogsheads of unpeated Ardnamurchan. And again, this is just from my memory from a tasting. I'm sure it's only 4 casks. I'm sure it's 2 ex-bourbon casks of 2 ex-bourbon casks and 2 sherry hogsheads. And I'm pretty confident the rest is all right. But just for clarity, that's what it is. But strangely enough, because of SWA laws, they were never able to do this in Scotland. So even if they teaspoon the Ardnamurchan with something else, they still couldn't blend this in Scotland. The SWA wouldn't allow it. So they went down to St. George's Distillery and blended it there. And then came back to Scotland and bottled what was blended. And that was fine. SWA doing SWA things. That's quite a, just the story of that. It says either on the bottom. So it either says it on that or it's on the box. I think it was. It definitely said on it. It was blended in England, bottled in Scotland. they had to drive the cask they got down to England to go and blend it.
So who did it then? Was it Ardnamurchan did it?
Ardnamurchan did it, yeah. Well, Adelphi Distillery. Adelphi.
Adelphi.
And they own that Ardnamurchan anyway, so it's all the same folk, inevitably.
It's quite an interesting concept, isn't it?
They've done a couple of these in the past. It's like different ones. So they've done like a Indian fusion one as well, the Japanese fusion. There's some ways before they had a Ardnamurchan, so some will be like Ardnamurchan blend with other things. Others will just be like some malt or some blended malt Scottish whiskey blended with some different category. Yeah, just like an interesting concept though, because it is something, really you don't see too often, and probably given the fact they had to go down to England to go and do it, that's probably why it's not done that often either. Like FWA really wasn't that keen on it.
Hopefully, when they do start bringing out guidelines for English whiskey, they don't scrap all this sort of thing, because it's just seeing themselves off, isn't it?
It's just a strange idea. I get that. I could understand it to the degree of not wanting to have that be called Scotch whiskey like this. I get it to that degree, but I never were trying to do that. It says on the bottle, malt whiskey 6 years old, and clearly states on it, because that's their marketing point. Their marketing point isn't it's a Scotch whiskey. Their marketing point says not a Scotch whiskey. This is a blend of Swedish whiskey and Scottish whiskey together. They're wanting to highlight that, but that's by the by, inevitably, isn't it?
But it is allowed to be called whiskey.
It is allowed to be called whiskey. It has malt whiskey 6 years old is on the label there. I'll put that over if you can see it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's when you're seeing retailing at 90 to 100. I think it's a bit pricey for what it is. I've only picked up through Good Spirits Company did a tasting where it was a little bit cheaper for if you'd done the tasting. They do a discount code at the end. So with the discount they gave, made it a little bit more reasonable, especially with the idea of it's something interesting and doing something like this, letting some other people try it.
I like it. I probably would never have bought it. Like I said before, I'd never even heard of High Coast until I seen the tasting. So yeah, I didn't know they were Swedish until 2 days ago when I googled it.
Yeah, it's an unusual one. So the Sandywoods, it's still available from some retailers, but not too many. It kind of sold out from quite a few quite quickly, which again, somewhat surprised at given the price point of it.
I had a Google there. It's pricey. It was pricey. It's basically.
Yeah.
I think if I bought another batch of this, I don't think I'd be put off, unless it was really expensive. I wouldn't be put off buying it. I quite like it. I like the idea of it and that.
Ooh.
It's not something I would normally go for, and I don't think I've got anything like it on the shelf really, so it'd be good to have.
It's definitely something very interesting, different.
This would be my least favorite, I have to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it smells better than it tastes for me. I think it's quite harsh it's catching me in the back of the throat. I think it's very harsh.
Bear in mind that it's still, as much as the last one was slightly stronger, this one is still quite strong. I think it's 58.
Yeah, no, it's not an ABV thing. Definitely not that. It smells quite sweet, almost like a caramelly, fudgy. But then I find it quite harsh when I'm not getting the flavors when I drink it that I would expect from this.
Was everyone else thinking of it as well?
I haven't drunk any yet, but I'm getting more custard on the nose now. So yeah, the nose is definitely developing the longer it's in the glass. So maybe, Glenn, it might be one just to leave for a little while in the glass.
Oh, I poured mine about 20 minutes before we started. I was
meaning 2 days.
I've actually just dropped a wee bit of water in it to see how it works.
That's it. If you don't like it to begin with, it's not going to do anything wrong to add that water. I'll drink it, but it's my least favorite of the three. Yeah.
Actually, really, when I went back to the first one after tasting the second one, it was nice. Really liked the first one.
I quite like this one. I think the peat's balanced quite nicely. It's making my mouth water, which is always a good sign. I haven't tried it with water, but I think it's got sort of almost like a melted milk chocolate thing. That's quite nice. I don't know if I still prefer the Cadenheads, but I think trouble is it's hard to get away from. You can get Le Havre for 35 quid, and this is 100 quid if you have to buy it at retail.
100%.
And that's quite a jump, isn't it? Do you want 3 bottles of something or 1 bottle?
I think I retract my statement. If it's 100 quid, I would not be buying this.
Yes.
I would pay. I'd probably pay double what I'd pay for the Havre, but not that.
That's the same like with me. I picked this up through a good spirits company when I did a taste with them, so it was like 75 to 80.
Yeah, I think I'd get one for that kind of price, just to have one there. But
yeah, and that was the kind of point of half doing it in the tasting was like, this is something interesting I feel a lot of folk wouldn't have tried because of the price point of it. It is really interesting, so it's definitely was worth putting out like that. Partly, I was saying to Tom earlier, kind of surprised that it didn't get as much interest, which is absolutely fair enough, but because it means I've got more of that left to enjoy myself. But because that was it. I don't really buy anything solely for splits anyway. Like I'll buy something because I wanted to enjoy it and then go, oh, that'd be nice to do in that. If you don't get it split, then you're not exactly sitting there going, oh fuck, I've got this ball I don't want now. I don't want the full sing of anyway.
I have the same kind of idea when I buy bottles. I wouldn't think, I wonder if anybody would want it, and then I think I don't want to be turning people down, so sometimes just do swaps and that. I don't think I've done a bottle split yet, other than with the bottle share blokes.
I just put up one the other day for that Sauterne Spenriek. I was initially not too many. You said, and then
I have a Bushmills finish in that, and it's great. So as soon as I read it, I was like, "Yep, I'm in."
I was because you messaged, I was like, "Yeah, I'll sort it out." Surprised I wasn't that many folk. It was just you at that time that said, "Yeah, I'll end that day," and then the next day, just yesterday, just all these other folks saying right, cool, this has changed, right? There's still some left, but it's alright. At least the majority of it's going through that. Cool. It's worth putting the split together for.
Yeah, it's I told you I like a wine cask. I do like a wine cask finish. I haven't tasted a whiskey yet that I haven't thought, it hits the spot for me.
The Havre is coming up as 35 quid with subscribe and save on Amazon for me.
There you go.
Which was the price I said I'd push the button, but
I couldn't believe those times I put them through it. I've put them through at that cost as a tasting. It was the High Coast Have, when I picked it up, was like 20 quid on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, right, no question.
Sometimes you just get a bargain, don't you, in life? You see
At
things
that
come up.
price, at that price for that bottle with the ABV, yeah, I'd be. My wife's very close, and she told me I'm not allowed to buy any bottles for a while, but it's very tempting. I really enjoyed that. I have to say, I think that's probably the one I've enjoyed the most of the three. The first one.
Mm-hmm. I think even regardless of which one your favourite ends up being, and particularly if it ends up being your favourite, like it is for yourself, the Have still stands up very well to ours. It's not that it's the most entry of the three we've tried, it doesn't taste like a kind of subpar version of them.
No. Yeah, I did like. I enjoyed it. It's, well, put it this way: it's the glass that has no liquid left in it. The others have tiny bits left, so I think that says it all.
Do you consider it to be an easy sipper?
Yeah, definitely. And it you know, the peat is just right. It's subtle. It's very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I drank it, the more the peat was being offset with I got like a lemony, limey kind of taste to it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my palate, but it was, yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been good. I think that's the kind of point I've listed, is just kind of showcasing a little bit of a distiller that is maybe slightly less seen or talked about as much compared to like all these other new distilleries, Scottish or otherwise. You hear a lot of talk about McMira right now from like even in our group. A lot of people know McMira. Less seem to know of High Coast, and which one you prefer is completely like everyone's individual call. I personally, I think, prefer what High Coast is doing, just out of like.
Not had enough McMira to say any either way, but from what I have had, I would probably say I prefer this. Like, I can't make a massively educated sort of opinion on it, but I've probably had about 3 McMira and 3 of these, and I would say I prefer this.
I think it's. I think it's whether you like. So McMira, I think, are more experimental in their cast, so I'd put them more as not as obviously on a par with Method and Madness, but it's more in line with that sort of thing. So they tend to chuck things at the wall and see what sticks in terms of the amount of stuff they're making. Though that, potentially might change in the future, but with High Coast, I think I'd love to see more cast strength releases from High Coast and see what that had. Like, I'd love to experiment more with a peated, like a cast strength Timmer or something like that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Oh, you go.
I was going to say, but yeah, I think out of all of them, Smogen is the favourite Swedish distillery. You just can't bloody get it. But that's incredible. Some of the stuff I've had from there is just like next world. But yeah. So if you get a chance, I highly recommend sort of trying out something of theirs. If you like peated whiskey, everything I've had from them's been peated. So I'm guessing that's their thing, but I may be wrong because I don't really know. I know about as much of them as I know about High Coast.
But the fact that we hear more about McMira, might that be because, well, the CEOs are more or less linked to Richard?
But I think McMira in the last...
In our community, we hear more about McMira. And
I don't even say it's just our community.
Sorry?
I don't even say it's just our community. I think it's like a kind of wider thing than just us.
Oh, okay. And
McMira
a designated ambassador in the UK. Does High Coast as well?
I couldn't tell you on that. I've never.
I don't think so.
The fact that I can't tell you suggests that even if there is, how good a job are they doing? Or not how good a job, but you know, how much backing do they have at least?
Yeah, I don't know whether High Coast do. I know that Smogan definitely don't. Well, definitely don't as far as I know, but I think less of a chance, especially if maybe Adelphi have done this, maybe Adelphi are the UK distributor of them. I don't know, but I think Matt Mira, what they did was when lockdown happened, was they started up their YouTube channel and they were doing loads of stuff every week virtually. And then they were pumping out those tasting packs that you could get for 15 quid and you could try 3 of their whiskies plus like a miniature. And I think that was just like incredible marketing for them, because when I met Ryan for the first time, he was like going on about watching these Matt Mira live streams, and I was like, oh, my mate Rich does those Matt Mira live streams, but like he, you know, just random people in the whiskey community are sort of seeing them because they were like the first people to get out there and do something regular, I think. So I think they just spent their marketing budget quite wisely, Frank, and got out there.
I also think that partly the thing was, I think Dan from Somerton Clubs mentioned this before, that McMira, and from his experience with McMira, they struggled initially to get out of that idea of how you can market, because the way you can market in Sweden, you can't really market alcohol at all. You can't really like do advertising too much with it there. So when you're coming to the UK, they weren't really advertising it at first, and then they kind of started pushing that further. So maybe part of it as well is High Coast is still stuck that little bit far back, and still you're not really advertising their product too well in other markets.
I think that Adelphi one does a little bit of water in it opens up the nose massively. Doesn't really do anything for the palate, to be honest, but yeah, get some big aromas coming out of that Adelphi one after the water.
I think for me, the thing that really drew me to this one more than any, because I've seen some of these like fusion whiskies I've done before. Part of it is as well being able to actually try it in the tasting. But what really drew me to for like the interest was, I've always viewed, as I said, was High Coast Have. Like, I used to recommend it to people as a alternative to Ardnamurchan if you're looking for that similar flavour profile. So a blend of Ardnamurchan and High Coast to me really made sense.
Yeah, the water definitely helps it. I actually think on the palate it helps it. Takes the harshness away that I was getting.
It was a good selection tonight, Jay. I'm going to have to shoot off and help out downstairs. So I'm going to see you guys soon. But thanks for getting this organised, mate, and thanks for getting all the facts up together. It's been a good night.